the next step here, as we think about the concerns, is we have the opportunity then to ask ourselves, okay, if these are the concerns that have my frustration going, hey, I'm going to show up and I'm going to help you here. Let's translate that into what is it that I care about, that these concerns really speak to. Because my care is another expression of it also will have different expressions in terms of the emotional tone that shows up, in terms of the way that it lives in my physicality, as well as the way that it lives and runs through my thoughts. So take a moment, if you will, and whatever you put down as the concerns, translate those in a linguistic way into what is it that I care about. In that situation, I have these concerns, and if the situation is on track to be resolved, what is it that I care about that will get taken, potentially taken care of? So make some notes to yourself there. Bosh, another little bit of reflective music, maybe a minute. Here we're getting into the heart of the matter. What is it in our concerns that really matters to us? If we take care of those concerns in some way, what will that take care of for us? And here as well, we can think about, what do I care about for me? What do I care about for others or for the situation we're facing? Perhaps it's bigger. What do I care about for the world? And this is a different mood. All righty. Let's call that good for now. And here we're looking. I love a few examples of the kinds of care that lives inside of a concern, because it may seem like these are twins or cousins, but they're different ways of speaking about the same thing, different sides to the same coin, if you will. So to appreciate, for example, that an underlying care that matters is to feel valued and accepted. Then to notice that that is what matters versus, oh, what I care about is the relationship here. Or if you can imagine, for example, the group of leaders that I gave this exercise to, when they switched over to taking their concerns and flipping them over to find the care that was underneath that concern. What do you imagine was the similarity or the difference for those leaders? And they discovered that there were some similarities, but there were also differences. They each had a uniquely different part of the organization that they were responsible for with different realities. And that colored what for them showed up as relevant in the area of care. And so as we, with a group, open this conversation or are able to help them get their concerns clarified and then flip that to the positive expression of what underneath that most foundationally matters, what we sometimes refer to this as is conditions of satisfaction. What is it that if it's present, it would be so satisfying for the group, you know? And if we can then look at that together and say, well, what do we see? You know, Julie, what matters to you? And how does that compare to what matters to Sharon versus what matters to Bruce? And then we see the whole of different kinds of cares. And then we're in, what does that give us then? That gives us a place from which to design with more intelligence. A way to design and innovate around how might we take care of this and that and this and the other piece? Or do we see that, oh boy, are we, at odds here? And one contingent of our group would have us heading in this direction, another contingent would have us heading in that direction. Isn't that interesting? And then the sooner we can discover those differences and those similarities, that's intelligence right there. What can we do with that? Well, I suppose we could try and make each other wrong. Who's right? Which direction should we go? And then that would bring us back to frustration, perhaps. But if we stand in the place of care and taking care, that's really the opportunity, because we can say, are there requests we can make? Are there offers we can make? Are there actions that we or others can take? And that this really is about taking care. And even if the direction that I want to head in taking care is a very different direction than you might head in taking care, if I bring that forward from a place of taking care rather than frustration, think to yourself, as you now think about, all right, what action you've clarified what matters to you. What action might you take? Or what action might others take? And is that something you would ask for or you would offer? And if in your own mind's eye you envision that as a form of taking care, What's different in that scene, in your mental scene? Okay, here's the difficult conversation, here's the difference, but I'm going to approach it as a way to take care of this, that, and the other thing. Versus, this hasn't happened yet, from frustration. What are the outcomes we're going to get, and at what cost? So what happens when we approach resolution of a frustration as taking care? Love some examples of this, and or if you want to jump to questions or comments, feel free to just love to hear what's popping for you from this. We've probably got about 6 more minutes, something like that, and then we'll wrap. So I want to make sure you get whatever discussion and exploration is going to be useful here for you, for us all. Yeah. So, shall I give you another example of how this particular situation resolved itself with that group?
Yeah.
So they sat there, and I tell you, just having this in front of them and making notes with their concerns had them listening much more actively and openly to the speaker. And then we had silence, and they were able to take time to translate their concerns into what positively they cared about. And they felt constructively engaged rather than like resentful that they're having to sit there and listen to somebody else tell them. And then we said, all right, what have we got? What is it that you have heard that matters in this? And we put them into small groups, and they were able to share and compare and come up with lists of what matters. And we gave them space. Hi, Bev, welcome. Gave them space to make the intelligence of what started as frustration and concerns and translated into positively focused cares, put that up on the wall, and then they all got to stand back. They all got to look at what was present, and they got to affinitize and group. They got to prioritize. And out of that conversation, there also was learning about the differences regionally and sub-regionally in this organization. And so there was intelligence about the system as a whole that came out of the discussion. And that intelligence then informed their work on the next project they were stepping into as well, because they got to know each other's worlds and each other's realities a little better, instead of just arm wrestling over, is it going to be your way or is it going to be my way? And they felt very productively engaged, and I think it made a real difference for them to see that their concerns could be taken care of. And if there wasn't an opportunity to move on something just yet, because it wasn't as high a priority or the readiness wasn't as fully there as it was for some of the other cares, that made sense because it had been vetted and it had a parking lot to go into, and there was a date set for when they would revisit that. And for that group of leaders, it was a very generative exercise. Yeah. Questions? Comments? Can you envision yourself doing something like this with a group?
Yeah. So I'm sorry.
So at the end of the work that you did with this group, part of the outcome was just one care for the entire team.
No,
No,
there were multiple cares
got it.
that got sort of, we prioritize and grouped. Okay, there's this type of area of focus that we need to take care of, and this issue needs to get taken care of, and this other one. And then they got into innovative action. All right, how
Mhm.
might we move forward on this? And there were action plans that were developed for their next steps
Got it.
and how they were going to approach the challenge in a way that
Got it.
worked for them, not just the other region.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Kim, I think that's so helpful what you said, because I think it's very easy to assume we have the same cares. Like the example I've been working with is a work situation where somebody was not following the direction that I gave them. So you would think we all have the same care of, well, we want to take care of the client. We want this to be executed correctly. But his concern was for efficiency. My concern was for knowing the thoroughness and the detail that's needed to properly execute it. So I think that's so, like, to keep drilling down on those cares.
Yes. Yes. Yes, because what is so obvious to me, may not be obvious to him. And what's obvious to him may not be as obvious to you. We do have different realities, different needs, different cares, different things that we're orienting to and plugging our attention into. Yeah. So is this a conversation to be held?
Fortunately, this is the one where I said, "Oh, we're on track to be resolved."
Oh, great. Because
Yes,
you could see. Mm-hmm.
yes. But then I also observed in myself, even after that, that like, okay, he's now going to do it my way, and partially, I'm not sure if he agrees with my cares or if it's because I better do what my boss told me to do. But I was like, okay, great, he's now going to do it that way. Get the detail that we need. But I found myself still going like, why would he do that? Why is it this way? I'm like, let that
Mm.
let that frustration go.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that frustration, if it's the driver, if it's in the driver's seat, you're going to get your way. But at what cost?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this other way enables what else? I mean, yes, you can get your concern for detailed
Yeah.
understanding of the specific needs, but also what else do you get?
Yeah. And in fact, like this conversation has me thinking, like, I better loop back and have this conversation that, like, hey, I think you were coming from a place of efficiency, but
Mhm.
here's where I was also coming from. Let's talk about that.
Yes. How might these two dance together?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're just doing the efficiency dance and if I'm just doing
Right.
the precision and detail dance, we're going to bump into each other. We're going to be in
Mm-hmm.
different worlds. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You also make me think about the value of when we allow our frustration to know that we're going to take care of it so that it can, our nervous systems can calm a bit. Then that opens up, for me anyway, the space to be curious about and learn from other people's ways of dancing, if you will, through the work that has to be done. And often then my own blinders, my own frames of reference expand. And since I just happen to love learning, it's fun as well, right? But I guess it's what motivates each of us too. Thank you, Julie, so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've got it also in the comments here. Sharon was saying, reminiscent of the getting to yes practice. Yes. of identifying not just positions, but the interests, the cares that underline the positions. Yes. And doing that in a way that takes care of dignity.
Yeah. I do find always when I work with groups, if they can list concerns together and separately, that it's such a great acknowledgement of what's present in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can be like, okay, my worries are here. I can see them and other people know them. And I think even that kind of takes a little bit of the heat out of a conversation and allows just a little more settling,
Yeah.
which I think does lead to the curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. I'm so glad for the people you get to work with. That's great, because otherwise we live with all this stuff in us, right?
Yeah.
And it's so hard to be present and to listen well and to connect well. That's great. All right. So any last comment to share? I would love if you would take a second and put in the chat what you are taking away from this exploration. That's helpful for us to understand better what's meaningful to people. And some of you are already familiar with the work of the Institute for Generative Leadership. I've been a program coach there and faculty there since, I guess, over 15 years. And I'm really grateful for the amazing community of practitioners that I've gotten to know over the many years of being involved. There is a new program that's starting up in January and another one, I think, in April. Not quite sure if that's the dates. If you know anybody that would be interested, feel free to send them our way or to the IGL's website. I guess Vaishnavi's, that's right, going to send along some follow-up information if that would be useful to anyone. But thank you for your reflections about what matters to you that you're taking away from today. And yeah, Bruce, the importance of linguistic reconstruction of moods and emotions. Yes, we do go there. And even just give our frustration some space and drilling down into cares to understand what each other is really working towards. Yeah. So wonderful to have you with us. And very best to you this holiday season, you and all of your frustrations and everyone's as well. May we welcome them with an understanding heart and mind and learn from what they have to tell us. Thank you so much.